Dad, you've done amazing work, but it's time for you to step back and enjoy retirement. To new beginnings. I never imagined my own flesh and blood would turn on me after 3 decades of sweat and sacrifice building our family empire. But when my son did it right there at our company gala, in front of everyone we knew, I just smiled, pulled out that cream-colored envelope from my jacket pocket, and slid it across the table to him like it was nothing. If you have ever been stabbed in the back by the person you raised, the person you trusted the most, leave your thoughts below in the comments, and follow until the end to see what happens next. Let me paint the picture for you. It was a warm Atlanta evening, the kind where the humidity clings to your skin like an old friend you can't shake. We'd rented out this swanky ballroom at the Georgian Terrace Hotel downtown. Crystal chandeliers sparkling overhead, white tablecloths draped over round tables loaded with steak and lobster, and a jazz band softly playing in the corner. This wasn't just any party. It was the 30th anniversary gala for Hayes Construction, the company I started from scratch back in the 90s. Back then, I was a young widower with a toddler son, scraping by on small remodeling jobs after losing my wife to cancer. I poured my soul into it, nights without sleep, weekends at job sites, turning down vacations to reinvest every penny. And now? We were a powerhouse in Atlanta's booming real estate scene, building everything from high-rises to suburban developments. Employees, clients, old partners. About 200 people packed the room, toasting to our success. I stood there in my tailored suit, feeling a swell of pride as the MC wrapped up his speech. My son, Alex, was next up. At 32, he was the spitting image of me in my prime. Tall, sharp jawline, that easy charisma that closed deals. I'd brought him into the business right out of college, mentored him through the ropes, even let him take over as COO 5 years ago. He was my right hand, my legacy. Or so I thought. Alex grabbed the mic, champagne flute in hand, and started strong. Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, tonight, we celebrate 30 years of Hayes Construction. To my dad, Victor Hayes, the man who built this from the ground up. The room erupted in applause. I beamed, raising my glass. But then his tone shifted. And as we look to the future, it's time for a new direction. I've partnered with an innovative investor group to restructure the company, streamline operations, bring in fresh capital, and ensure we're ready for the next 30 years. Dad, you've done amazing work, but it's time for you to step back and enjoy retirement. To new beginnings. The room went dead silent. Forks clattered to plates. Whispers rippled like wildfire. Eyes darted between Alex and me, his triumphant grin faltering just a bit as he waited for my explosion. The betrayal hit like a gut punch. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a coup. He'd been plotting to push me out, sell off parts of what I'd built. But I didn't crumble. Years of boardroom battles had taught me control. Instead, I smiled, that calm, knowing smile I'd perfected over decades. "Congratulations on your vision, son," I said, voice steady as steel. The crowd leaned in, stunned. I reached into my inner pocket and pulled out the sealed envelope, placing it neatly beside his plate. "Something for you to review later. Enjoy the evening, everyone." Then I turned to my granddaughter, Lily, Alex's 8-year-old, sitting wide-eyed next to me in her little party dress. I kissed her forehead. "Proud of our family, kiddo. This night's still about celebrating." With that, I straightened my tie, nodded to the shocked faces around me, and walked out. The heavy ballroom doors swung shut behind me, muffling the rising buzz of confusion. Outside, the Atlanta night air hit me, city lights twinkling, traffic humming below. For the first time in months, I felt a weight lift. Alex's voice echoed from inside, chasing after me. "Dad? What the hell is this?" But I kept walking, a small grin creeping up. That envelope? It was the start of my plan, one I'd been crafting in secret. See, I'm Victor Hayes, 58 years old, and until that moment I'd been the devoted father, the unbreakable founder. But betrayal changes a man, and I was about to show my son just how unbreakable I really was. You know, it's funny how you can spend your whole life building something, brick by brick, late nights, early mornings, every ounce of grit you've got, only to realize the one person you trusted most was sharpening the knife to carve it all away. That's what hit me as I walked away from that gala, my son's betrayal still ringing in my ears. But to understand why it cut so deep, you've got to know where we came from. So let me take you back, way back, to the start of Hayes Construction, to the sacrifices, the dreams, and the family I thought I'd built on solid ground. If you're still with me, keep listening, because this is where the real story begins. I'm Victor Hayes, and I was 28 when I started this company in 1995, right here in Atlanta. Back then, I wasn't some big-shot CEO in a tailored suit. I was a broke widower, barely keeping it together after losing my wife, Sarah, to breast cancer. She was my high school sweetheart, the kind of woman who'd laugh at my bad jokes and make the best sweet tea you ever tasted. When she passed, our son Alex was just 3, this tiny kid with her hazel eyes, clinging to my leg at the funeral. I looked at him and promised, out loud to her memory, that I'd give him everything she'd have wanted. A good life. A future. That promise became my North Star. Starting Hayes Construction wasn't glamorous. I was a carpenter by trade, picking up odd jobs, kitchen remodels, porch repairs, whatever paid the bills. I'd strap Alex into his car seat, drive to sites with a toolbox in the truck bed, and work while he napped in the cab. Nights I'd pore over accounting books at our little apartment's kitchen table, teaching myself business math with a second-hand calculator. I didn't have an MBA, just a stubborn streak and a kid who needed me. By the time Alex was in grade school, I'd saved enough to take on bigger projects, small houses, then strip malls. I hired my first crew, guys who became like family, like Tommy, our foreman, who's still with me today. By 2005, we were breaking ground on our first office park. Hayes Construction was becoming a name in Atlanta. Alex grew up on those job sites. At 8, he'd tag along, wearing a tiny hard hat I got him, asking a million questions about blueprints. "Dad, why's that beam gotta be so big?" I'd laugh, ruffle his hair, and explain load-bearing walls like he was my apprentice. I wanted him to love this work like I did. When he hit high school, I paid for private tutors to get him into Georgia Tech. College wasn't cheap, so I skipped bonuses for myself, poured profits back into the business, even sold my dad's old fishing boat to cover his tuition. I didn't mind. Every late night, every missed vacation, it was for him. For us. When Alex graduated with a business degree, I brought him into the company. He was 22, hungry, with big ideas about modernizing, digital project management, eco-friendly builds. I was proud, maybe too proud. I made him COO at 27, handed him the keys to half the kingdom. He closed deals I couldn't, charmed clients with that smile of his. But there was always a restlessness in him, like he wanted more, faster. I chalked it up to youth. Looking back, man, I should have seen it. The late-night calls he'd take outside, the meetings he wouldn't explain. I trusted him. He was my son. Then there's Elena. She showed up about 2 years ago, this sharp, polished woman in her late 20s, all designer suits and quick wit. Alex introduced her as a consultant for a new investor group, but I caught the way they looked at each other. Too close, too familiar. She'd come to company barbecues, charm the staff, even asked me for advice once about navigating Atlanta's real estate scene. I liked her, thought she was good for Alex. My sister Laura, though, she wasn't sold. Laura's my rock, a literature professor at Emory, never married, always blunt. Vic, she's ambitious, and not in a good way, she'd say, sipping her coffee at our Sunday brunches. I'd laugh it off. He's just young, Laura. Let him have his fun. Our family home's in Buckhead, a big brick house with a wraparound porch, bought after our first $1 million contract. It's where I raised Alex, where he brought his daughter, Lily, after his divorce. Lily's 8 now, all pigtails and giggles, the light of my life. I'd do anything for that kid, just like I did for her dad. But over the past year, things shifted. Alex was distant, short answers, always on his phone. I noticed oddities in the books, small transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. As the guy who still signed off on major expenses, those numbers stuck out like a splinter. I'd ask Alex, and he'd brush it off. Just a vendor mix-up, Dad. I let it go. I mean, this was my son, the kid I'd taught to swing a hammer, to dream big. Betrayal? Never crossed my mind. But it should have. Those little discrepancies, they weren't mistakes. They were the first cracks in the foundation I'd spent 30 years building. And as I stood outside that gala, the Atlanta skyline glowing behind me, I knew the truth was coming. That envelope I'd handed Alex? It wasn't just paper. It was the start of my fight to take back what was mine. Stick around, because you're going to want to hear how this plays out. Betrayal doesn't always announce itself with a big, dramatic moment. Sometimes it creeps in quietly, like a shadow you don't notice until it's blocking out the sun. For me, that shadow started to take shape about 3 months before the gala, when I was going through the company books late one night. I'm Victor Hayes, and I've always prided myself on knowing every dollar that moves through Hayes Construction. So when I spotted those first irregularities, small transfers to an account I didn't recognize, it felt like a pebble in my shoe. Annoying, but not enough to stop me. Yet. If you've ever felt the pain of something not being right with someone you love, leave a comment. Because this is when I started to see the cracks in everything I thought I knew about my son. It was a Thursday, around 10 p.m., and I was in my home office in Buckhead, the glow of my laptop the only light in the house. Alex had been COO for 5 years, handling day-to-day ops, but I still reviewed the big financials, call it habit from the early days when every penny mattered. I noticed a series of transfers, $5,000 here, $10,000 there, to an account labeled Consulting Services LLC. No vendor contract, no invoice. I asked Alex about it the next morning over coffee. Probably just a new subcontractor, he said, barely looking up from his phone. I'll check with accounting. His nonchalance should have been my first red flag, but I trusted him. He was my kid, the one I'd raised to take over someday. A week later, the transfers kept happening. I dug deeper, pulling bank statements, cross-referencing payment logs. Nothing added up. That's when I called in Sarah, named after my late wife, a private auditor I'd known for years. someone I trusted to keep things quiet. Over takeout in my office, she laid it out. Vic, these transfers are going to a shell company. No real business address. No tax filings. Someone's funneling money, and they're not being sloppy about it. My stomach sank. I didn't want to believe it, but the numbers didn't lie. I asked her to keep digging. No questions asked. No reports to the board yet. I needed to know who. 2 weeks later, Sarah slid a folder across my desk. Inside were bank records, email chains, and screenshots. Legal ones, from company servers I had every right to access. The shell company traced back to Elena, Alex's consultant girlfriend. She wasn't just a fling. She was part of a bigger play. Emails between her and Alex laid out their plan. Partner with an outside investor group to buy up company assets, rebrand under a new name, and ease me out. Dad's too old school, one email read. He'll fight it unless we make it public at the Gala. He won't make a scene in front of clients. My hands shook as I read it. My own son plotting to steal what I'd built, using my trust against me. The worst part? The texts. Alex left his work phone on my desk one day, unlocked. A rare slip-up. I didn't snoop, not at first, but a notification popped up from Elena. After the Gala, we're free. New office in Miami. New life. I scrolled back, heart pounding. Messages about securing the funds, about how I'd never suspect because I was too busy playing patriarch. They'd been at this for over a year, siphoning money, whining and dining investors, even scouting properties in Florida. All while Alex smiled at board meetings, called me dad over Sunday dinners, and hugged his daughter Lily like nothing was wrong. I sat there staring at those texts, memories flashing back. Teaching Alex to read blueprints at 10. Bailing him out when his first big project tanked. Handing him the COO title because I believed in him. The pain wasn't just the money or the business. It was the betrayal of the kid I'd raised alone after Sarah died. But then I remembered something else. The family business agreement we'd signed when he joined as COO. I'd insisted on it. A legal safeguard to protect Hayes Construction from outside threats. It had a loyalty clause. Breach it, and you forfeit your stake. Alex had laughed it off back then, called it old man paranoia. Now it was my lifeline. I didn't confront him, not yet. Anger burned, sure, but I've been in enough fights to know you don't swing wild. You plan, you wait, you hit where it hurts most. So I started building my case, piece by piece, while Alex thought he had me fooled. The Gala was coming, and he'd planned his big moment. What he didn't know? I was planning mine. You know that old saying, revenge is a dish best served cold? Well, after uncovering Alex's betrayal, I didn't rush in hot-headed like some movie hero. No, I simmered, planned, and turned that fire into a calculated blaze. I'm Victor Hayes, and for the first time in my life, I was playing chess while my son thought we were still on checkers. It started the day after Sarah, my auditor, handed me that folder full of damning evidence. I didn't sleep that night, pacing the creaky floors of my Buckhead home, staring at old photos on the mantel. Alex as a toddler on my shoulders at a job site. Us cutting the ribbon on our first big project. The pain was raw, like losing Sarah all over again, but this time to greed instead of illness. By dawn, though, anger gave way to action. I wasn't going to let him dismantle what I'd built, not without a fight. First stop, my lawyer, Marcus Reed, an old golf buddy who'd handled every contract since the early days. I met him at his downtown office, a sleek high-rise overlooking the Atlanta skyline, the kind of place where deals are made and broken over strong coffee. "Vic, this is serious," Marcus said, flipping through the emails and bank records I'd printed out. "Your business agreement's airtight. That loyalty clause you insisted on? It's gold. Breach it with insider dealing, and he forfeits his equity stake." We spent hours mapping it out. The clause wasn't just words on paper. It was my insurance policy, designed to keep the company in family hands and protect against exactly this: someone selling out for personal gain. Alex had signed it willingly, probably skimmed it like he did most things he found boring. Marcus advised discretion. Don't tip your hand. Gather more evidence, then hit him with a lawsuit for breach of fiduciary duty. So that's what I did. I hired a forensic accountant, quietly, through a shell referral, to trace every penny. Turns out, Alex and Elena had siphoned over $200,000 into their shell company, funding investor meetings that were really lavish trips to Miami, scouting beachfront offices for their new venture. I documented it all: timestamps, IP addresses from company emails, even photos from Elena's social media that matched the dates. It was meticulous work, late nights in my home office while the house slept, but it kept me focused. No booze, no breakdowns, just purpose. Balancing this with family life? That was the hard part. Alex still came over for dinners, acting like nothing was wrong, grilling steaks on the back porch while Lily chased fireflies in the yard. "Dad, you okay?" "You seem tired," he'd say, all concern, as if he wasn't plotting my ouster. I'd nod, force a smile, and change the subject to Lily's school projects. Protecting her was non-negotiable. She was 8, innocent, with Alex's charm and my stubborn streak. I didn't want her caught in the crossfire, so I shielded her from the tension. "Grandpa's just busy with work, sweetie," I'd tell her when she asked why I was always on my computer. But inside, it tore me up, reflections on fatherhood hitting like waves. I raised him to be ambitious, taught him to seize opportunities, but not like this. Not at my expense. Did I fail him somewhere? I'd wonder, staring at the ceiling. Regret gnawed, but resolve won out. This wasn't about punishing my son. It was about saving our legacy. My sister Laura was my anchor. I confided in her over coffee at her Emory campus apartment, surrounded by bookshelves and that cozy academic vibe. "Vic, he's always been impulsive," she said, her eyes sharp behind her glasses. "Remember when he crashed your truck at 16? You bailed him out. This time, let consequences teach him." She was right. Laura had spotted Alex and Elena getting cozy at a family barbecue last Christmas, confronted him privately. He'd sworn it was just business, promised to keep it professional. When she realized he lied, she came to me. "I'm on your side, brother," she said, hugging me fierce. Her support fueled me. We brainstormed ways to freeze assets preemptively, using emergency legal filings to lock down company accounts without alerting Alex. Timing was everything. I knew from those intercepted emails that Alex planned his Gala bombshell to catch me off guard, in public, where I'd hesitate to fight back. So I flipped the script. Marcus drafted the lawsuit papers: breach of contract, embezzlement claims, demands for full financial disclosure. I timed the filing for the morning of the gala, sealed in court, not accessible to Alex yet, but ready to serve. That cream-colored envelope? It held a notice of the suit, plus a personal letter from me. "Son, you wanted a new direction. Consider this your roadmap." Poetic, maybe, but it felt right. The night before the gala, I packed that envelope in my jacket, heart pounding but steady. The house was quiet. Lily asleep upstairs, Alex off prepping with Elena. I sat on the porch, sipping black coffee, watching the Atlanta lights flicker. Doubt crept in. Was I too harsh? But then I thought of Sarah, how she'd want me to fight for what we built. No, this was necessary. Alex had chosen his path. Now I'd show him mine. Little did he know I was 3 steps ahead, ready to turn his spectacle into my counterstrike. Walking away from that gala felt like shedding a skin I'd worn too long. Tight, uncomfortable but familiar. The Atlanta night was alive with the hum of Peachtree Street traffic, headlights flashing like fireflies as I headed to my truck in the valet lot. My phone buzzed nonstop in my pocket. Texts from clients, employees, even Laura. What just happened? Call me. But I ignored them, heart steady despite the adrenaline. I'd planned for this moment, rehearsed it in my head. Alex's public stunt was meant to humiliate me, make me look like the outdated relic in front of our world. Instead, it was his unraveling. And sure enough, the ballroom doors burst open behind me, Alex's voice cutting through the air. Dad! Wait up! What the hell is this envelope? I turned slowly, keys in hand, as he jogged up, face flushed under the streetlights, the cream-colored paper clutched like a grenade. Elena trailed a few steps behind, her heels clicking uncertainly, that confident facade cracking. The gala crowd spilled out a bit, whispering from the entrance, but I kept my voice low, controlled. It's a notice, son. Lawsuit for breach of fiduciary duty. Read it carefully. His eyes widened, scanning the page. Words like embezzlement, loyalty clause violation, asset freeze pending court order. The color drained from his face. This is bullshit, Dad. You're overreacting. I was just announcing a partnership. Overreacting? I almost laughed but kept it cool, like I was negotiating a tough contract. A partnership that cuts me out, using company funds you siphoned off. Yeah, I know about the shell account, the Miami trips disguised as investor meetings. You forgot I'm the one who taught you how to read a balance sheet. Elena shifted uncomfortably, glancing between us. Alex, maybe we should talk inside, she murmured. But he waved her off, anger bubbling up. How did you? This is invasion of privacy. No denial, just deflection. Classic Alex, always quick to pivot when cornered. We didn't hash it out there. I got in my truck, drove home to Buckhead, the envelope's weight off my shoulders now on his. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the big colonial house glowing under porch lights, Alex's SUV screeched in behind me. He stormed up the steps as I unlocked the door, Elena in tow, looking less like a power player and more like she'd wandered into the wrong meeting. Inside, the living room felt smaller. Family photos on the walls mocking us. Alex's college graduation, Lily's birthday parties, all those proud dad moments. Laura was already there. I'd texted her to come over, knowing I'd need backup. She stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, while Lily slept upstairs, oblivious for now. Alex slammed the envelope on the coffee table. You filed this morning? Before the gala? You've been spying on me. His voice rose, echoing off the high ceilings. I sat in my armchair, calm as a judge. Not spying, son. Protecting. Those emails, the texts, I accessed them legally through company servers. You planned to blindside me publicly so I wouldn't fight back. Well, here we are. I pulled out my tablet, opened the folder of evidence, bank statements, email chains, even a recording from a boardroom mic, where he'd bragged to Elena about easing the old man out. I hit play. Alex's voice, cocky. Dad trusts me blind. That's his weakness. The room went silent. Elena's face hardened. You recorded us? That's low, Victor. Laura jumped in, her professor tone sharp. Low? You two have been stealing from the company my brother built from nothing. Alex, I confronted you months ago about Elena. You swore it was just business. Lies on lies. Alex paced, running hands through his hair. Aunt Laura, stay out of this. Dad, we can fix it. The investors, they're the future. You're stuck in the past. Denials turn to pleas, then anger. This lawsuit will tank the company. Think about Lily. That hit hard, using his daughter as a shield. My voice finally cracked a bit. Don't you dare. You weren't thinking of her when you funneled money for your beachfront dreams. Elena, sensing the tide turning, touched Alex's arm. Alex, you said the funds were secured. If accounts are frozen. Cracks showed. She hadn't known the full extent of his sloppiness. It's fine, he snapped, but doubt flickered in his eyes. I leaned forward. Not fine. Courts already flagged it. Your personal stake? Forfeited under the agreement you signed. Remember laughing at that old man paranoia clause? He collapsed onto the couch, defeated. This is vindictive, Dad. We're family. I studied him. The boy I'd raised. Now a man I'd barely recognize. Family doesn't steal, Alex. But yeah, we are. That's why it hurts. As they left, Elena whispering furiously to him on the porch, Laura hugged me. You did what you had to. Upstairs, I checked on Lily, her peaceful sleep a reminder of what was at stake. The confrontation wasn't over, but the mask was off. My plan was unfolding, and for the first time, I felt the power shift back to me. The days after that Gala confrontation blurred into a storm of phone calls, emails, and sleepless nights. I'm Victor Hayes, and I'd always run Hayes Construction like a tight ship, but now it felt like I was navigating through a hurricane, one my own son had brewed. The lawsuit I'd filed hung over us like a dark cloud, and as we headed into the legal trenches, I braced for the fallout. The preliminary hearing came fast. 3 days later, in a stuffy Atlanta courthouse downtown, the kind with worn wooden benches and fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry bees. Marcus, my lawyer, was sharp as ever in his pinstripe suit, while Alex showed up with some hotshot attorney he'd scrambled to hire, a young guy from a flashy corporate firm more used to mergers than family feuds. Poor choice, but that's Alex, always going for the shiny option. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with a southern drawl that could cut glass, reviewed the business agreement we'd signed years ago. Mr. Hayes Sr., this loyalty clause is clear as day, she said, peering over her glasses. Breach via unauthorized asset transfers and insider dealings triggers forfeiture of equity. Do you contest, counsel? Alex's lawyer stammered through some weak argument about evolving business practices and how the clause was outdated. Marcus countered smoothly, presenting the evidence stack. Bank records, emails, that damning recording. The judge nodded. I'm granting the emergency freeze on company accounts and assets. Mr. Hayes Jr. retains access to his personal funds only. No major decisions without court approval. We'll reconvene in 30 days for full discovery. Alex's face went ashen as we left the courtroom. He caught me in the hallway, desperation in his eyes. Dad, this is killing the company. Clients are calling. Rumors are flying. I met his gaze steadily. You started the fire, son. Now we're both getting burned. The ripple effects hit quick and hard. With accounts frozen, Alex couldn't close on those new ventures he'd promised Elena and her investors. Word spread like wildfire through Atlanta's tight-knit construction circles, networking events, Chamber of Commerce lunches, even golf outings where deals get whispered. Heard about Hayes? Kid tried to oust his old man. Reputations tanked overnight. 2 big clients pulled out, citing instability. But our loyal core, guys like Tommy the foreman, stuck by me, stabilizing operations under my temporary control. I stepped back in as acting CEO, mentoring younger talent like our project manager, Jamal, who'd shown promise. Vic, we're with you, Tommy said over beers one night. Alex crossed a line. It felt good, rebuilding that trust, securing bids on new developments to keep the ship afloat. Elena bailed fastest. 2 weeks in, Laura called me laughing. She's out. Packed up and left their midtown condo. Told a mutual friend Alex's vision didn't include being broke. Turns out, Elena had dug into the frozen accounts and realized Alex's boasts about substantial reserves were smoke. She'd signed on for a power couple dynamic, not a legal mess. Alex tried calling her bluff, but she ghosted, already linked up with some venture capitalist in Miami. Watching him unravel, texts begging me to unfreeze just enough for a loan. It hurt, but it was justice. He'd built illusions. Now they crumbled. Emotional confrontations piled on. We tried a family sit-down at Laura's place, like some awkward therapy session amid her books and plants. Lily was there, confused, asking why Daddy was sad all the time. Alex pleaded, Dad, I messed up. It was Elena's idea. I got carried away. Let's drop the suit, work it out as family. His voice cracked, eyes red-rimmed. For a second, I saw the boy I'd raised, vulnerable. But then I remembered the emails, the Gala humiliation. Actions have consequences, Alex. You chose greed over loyalty. Laura mediated, gentle but firm. You betrayed your dad, your daughter too, using company money while telling Lily times were tight. Reconciliation attempts failed. Trust was shattered. I set boundaries. No more access to the house. Supervised visits with Lily. It broke my heart, hearing her cry on the phone, but protecting her came first. Broader impact, Alex's name became toxic in Atlanta business. Invites dried up. Partners distanced themselves. His new direction fizzled without capital. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding, hiring interns, expanding eco-builds, even starting a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs. It was empowering, finding purpose beyond the betrayal. The climax came at the final hearing, a rainy morning in that same courthouse. Evidence poured out during discovery. More hidden transfers. Witness statements from employees who'd suspected but stayed silent. The judge upheld the agreement. Full forfeiture of Mr. Hayes Jr.'s 40% stake. Control reverts to Mr. Hayes Sr., with minimal severance shares for the defendant. Alex left with scraps. Enough for a small apartment. His struggling side gigs. As we exited, he approached one last time. Dad, I'm sorry. Can we try again? I paused, rain pattering on the steps. Maybe someday, son. But not today. Walking away, the weight lifted. Poetic justice. The clause he'd mocked had saved everything. 6 months after that final courtroom showdown, I stood in the new office of Hayes Construction Solutions, a sleek space downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Atlanta's skyline. I'm Victor Hayes, and at 58, I wasn't just rebuilding a company, I was rebuilding myself. The betrayal from Alex, my own son, had cracked something deep, but it also broke open a door I didn't know I'd been ignoring. The company was thriving again. I'd taken back the reins, mentored new talent like Jamal, and launched a division for affordable housing, something Alex had scoffed at as not profitable. Clients came back, impressed by our resilience, and I hired 2 project managers to handle the growth. My consultancy side hustle, helping small businesses navigate financial pitfalls, took off too. I was mentoring folks who'd been blindsided like me, teaching them to spot the red flags I'd missed. It wasn't just work. It was purpose, like I'd found a piece of myself I'd buried under Dad and CEO. Alex? He was a shadow of his old self. After losing his stake, he moved to a cramped apartment in Decatur, scraping by on freelance consulting gigs. Elena was long gone, shacked up with her new real estate tycoon in Miami. Our mutual contacts, guys from the chamber, old golf buddies, kept their distance from him, his reputation toast after the Gala stunt and courtroom loss. He tried reaching out, leaving voicemails. "Dad, I know I screwed up. Can we talk?" I didn't respond, not out of spite, but because trust takes time to rebuild. Lily still saw him, supervised visits at Laura's place, but she'd come home quiet, torn between love for her dad and anger at what he'd done. It hurt, but I kept her shielded, focusing on her school plays and soccer games, being the steady grandpa she needed. The poetic justice was in that business agreement, the one Alex mocked as paranoid. It saved the company, the house, my legacy. He'd built his betrayal on quicksand, thinking charisma could outrun consequences. It didn't. On what would have been our company's 31st anniversary, I stood in our new office, toasting with Laura and the team, not to victory, but to resilience. Trust is earned, even in family. Betrayal stings, but it can forge you stronger if you don't let it break you. Never let anyone dim your legacy. If this story hit you, maybe you've faced your own family drama or business betrayal. Drop a comment below and tell me about it. How'd you bounce back? Smash that subscribe button for more real-life stories of grit and comebacks. And check out my last video on spotting financial scams in family businesses. Thanks for sticking with me, Mahum. The next one.